The jungle buzzed with life, its verdant depths alive with strange, otherworldly noises. Birds with shimmering, translucent wings flitted overhead, their cries echoing through the canopy. The air was thick with humidity, heavy with the scent of alien flora. Trees stretched into the sky like twisted emerald spires, their bark glowing faintly in the dim light. The path ahead was treacherous, winding through gnarled roots and dense undergrowth, but the human warrior pressed on. Dane's hand clenched around the hilt of his blade, its surface worn smooth from years of battle. Sweat trickled down his forehead, but he paid it no mind. His armor, a patchwork of human and salvaged alien tech, clinked softly with each step. A soft hum emanated from the device strapped to his wrist, a locator beacon, steadily guiding him to his destination. In his mind, the weight of his mission pressed heavily. The golden sword he carried was not just any relic, it was the blade of Queen Xeryn, a ruler of the vanished Orai, an ancient alien race whose legacy had been reduced to myths and whispers. It was said the sword had been lost for centuries, taken during a great war and hidden away on a distant world. To recover it had taken him across star systems, through ruins, and into battles that had tested every ounce of his resolve. Now, finally, the beacon had led him here, this uncharted planet deep in the vast expanse, where even the most advanced star charts marked only with vague warnings. The Orai Queen herself, or what remained of her lineage, was rumored to dwell in exile somewhere in this jungle. He tightened his grip on the sword's hilt, its golden sheen dim in the shadows. It felt alive in his hands, as if it recognized the closeness of its true owner. The blade's intricate engraving seemed to pulse faintly, a rhythm that matched the steady thrum of his own heartbeat. Dane emerged into a clearing, his boots crunching on soft, mossy ground. The sight before him made him pause. A structure rose from the earth, massive and angular, its surface etched with glowing blue runes. The air around it shimmered as if reality itself struggled to contain its presence. This had to be the place. He took a cautious step forward. The ground beneath him seemed to shift, almost as if the planet itself was reacting to his presence. Then, a voice echoed through the clearing, melodic yet commanding, with a resonance that vibrated through his chest. "Who dares disturb the sanctum of Xeryn?" Dane froze, his eyes scanning the shadows. From the base of the structure, a figure emerged. She was tall and regal, her silvery skin glinting faintly in the dim light. Her hair flowed like liquid starlight, cascading down her back, and her eyes glowed with an otherworldly intensity. She was clad in armor unlike any he had ever seen, an intricate blend of organic and mechanical design that seemed to ripple with energy. The Queen. Dane dropped to one knee, lowering his head as he held the golden sword out before him. His voice, hoarse from days of travel, carried across the clearing. "Your Majesty Xeryn, I bring what was stolen. The blade of Xeryn. Your sword." For a moment, there was silence. Then, the Queen stepped closer, her movements graceful and deliberate. Her gaze was fixed on the blade, her expression unreadable. When she reached him, she extended a hand, her fingers brushing against the hilt. As her touch met the metal, a burst of light erupted from the sword, illuminating the clearing in a brilliant gold. The reaction was instantaneous. Energy rippled through the air, and the runes on the structure flared to life, their glow brightening as if awakening after centuries of slumber. The sword seemed to hum with power, its light growing ever brighter. Dane shielded his eyes, the brilliance almost blinding. When the light faded, the Queen stood taller, her expression transformed. Gone was the stoic mask she had worn moments before. Her eyes shimmered with emotion, joy, awe, perhaps even disbelief. She held the sword aloft, its golden light casting intricate patterns across her face. Her voice trembled slightly as she spoke. You have done what no one else could. You have returned the blade of Xeryn to its rightful place. I had all but given up hope." Dane rose slowly, meeting her gaze. "It was not easy," he said, his tone even. "But I made a promise. And I keep my promises." The Queen studied him for a moment, her eyes searching his face. Then she laughed, a sound like the chiming of crystal, filled with genuine delight. It was an unexpected reaction, one that caught Dane off guard. He had imagined many possible outcomes to this meeting, but this was not one of them. "You are an extraordinary being, human," she said, her laughter subsiding. "To venture into the unknown, to face dangers beyond imagining, all for a people who are not your own. Tell me, what drives you? What compels you to such lengths?" Dane hesitated. He had asked himself the same question countless times during his journey. "Maybe it's the stories," he admitted finally. "The idea that some things are worth saving, even if they've been forgotten. Or maybe it's just stubbornness. I don't know." The Queen smiled, a warm, genuine expression that softened her regal demeanor. "Whatever your reasons, you have my gratitude. The orai owe you a debt that cannot be repaid." As she spoke, the structure behind her began to change. Sections of its surface shifted, revealing a hidden entrance. Light spilled from within, illuminating the clearing. The Queen turned, gesturing for Dane to follow. "Come," she said. "There is much to discuss, and many truths you deserve to know." Dane hesitated for only a moment before stepping forward. As he followed the Queen into the depths of the structure, he couldn't shake the feeling that his journey was far from over. Whatever awaited him inside, it was bound to be as extraordinary as the path that had brought him here. The entrance to the structure was like stepping into another world. The air inside was cool and carried a faint metallic tang, the soft hum of energy flowing through unseen conduits filling the space. Glowing veins of blue light crisscrossed the walls, casting an ethereal glow that made the shadows dance. The architecture was unlike anything Dane had ever seen, organic in its curves yet precise, as if carved by a master artisan with tools beyond human understanding. Queen Xeryn moved ahead, her every step purposeful, yet graceful, as if this place responded to her presence. The golden sword she held began to emit a faint vibration, its light pulsing in rhythm with the glowing patterns on the walls. Dane followed, his eyes taking in every detail. His hand hovered near his sidearm, a reflexive habit born from years of danger, but something told him no harm would come to him here. They descended a winding ramp, deeper into the structure. The walls began to shift, displaying images that seemed alive. Scenes of towering cities that gleamed under alien suns, ships that defied the laws of physics, and people with luminous features not unlike the Queen. Dane realized they were witnessing the history of the orai. "These are the memories of my people," Xeryn said, her voice carrying a note of wistfulness. She stopped, turning to face him. "Once, we were a thriving civilization, our reach spanning countless star systems. But hubris and betrayal brought us to ruin." Dane's gaze lingered on an image of an enormous fleet, sleek, otherworldly ships poised for war. "Betrayal." Xeryn's expression darkened. "An enemy we trusted. They sought to claim our power for themselves. They waged war against us, and in the end, they succeeded. Our cities fell, our people scattered, and the blade of Xeryn was taken. Without it, we could not reclaim what was ours. It was more than a weapon. It was a symbol of unity and strength, forged from the heart of a dying star." She looked at the sword, her eyes softening. "And now, it has returned." Dane took a step closer, his curiosity piqued. "If the blade is so powerful, why did you wait for someone like me to bring it back? Surely, you could have sent others." Xeryn smiled faintly. "You underestimate the forces at work, human. The blade could not simply be retrieved, it had to be earned. The trials you faced, the sacrifices you made, they were as much a test of your worth as they were a path to its recovery." Dane frowned. "A test? By who?" Before she could answer, the corridor opened into a vast chamber, its ceiling arching high above them. In the center stood a pedestal, its surface adorned with glowing runes that radiated power. The Queen approached it, placing the sword atop the pedestal. The runes flared to life, and the chamber trembled. "The time for answers will come," Xeryn said. "But first, there is something you must see." The floor beneath them shifted, and a platform began to rise, carrying them upward. Dane steadied himself, his pulse quickening. As they ascended, the chamber's walls transformed into windows, revealing the planet beyond. The jungle stretched as far as the eye could see, its surface broken by ancient ruins and crystalline lakes. Above, the sky shimmered with unfamiliar constellations. Then, the platform emerged onto a balcony, and Dane's breath caught in his throat. Before them, The jungle gave way to an enormous crater. At its center lay the ruins of a city, its spires half buried in vegetation. Ships of alien design were scattered like fallen leaves, their hulks rusted and broken. But what drew his attention most was the object at the heart of it all, a massive structure that resembled a fallen starship, its surface scorched and cracked. "That is the cradle of my people," Xeryn said, her voice tinged with both pride and sorrow. "Our last refuge before the war consumed us. The Blade's return has awakened its systems. With it, we may yet reclaim what was lost." Dane studied the scene, his mind racing. "And what happens if you do?" Xeryn's gaze was steady. "We rebuild. We rise again. But the path will not be easy. There are those who would see us remain in ruin, who fear what we represent." The warrior nodded slowly, understanding the weight of her words. He had faced enemies of his own who feared change, who clung to power at the expense of others. "If you're going to make a stand, you'll need allies." The Queen's lips curved into a faint smile. "Indeed. And you, Dane, have proven yourself more than capable. The question is, will you stand with us?" He hesitated, the enormity of the choice settling over him. He had come here to return the blade, to fulfill a mission. But now, standing on the brink of something far greater, he found himself drawn to the Queen's cause. Her people's struggle mirrored so many others he had seen across the stars, struggles for freedom, for identity, for survival. Dane met her gaze. "I didn't come all this way to turn back now." The Queen's expression softened, a spark of hope lighting her eyes. "Then let us begin. Together, we will forge a new future." As the platform began to descend, Dane felt a sense of purpose welling within him. The journey that had brought him here was only the beginning. Ahead lay battles yet to be fought, alliances yet to be forged, and truths yet to be uncovered. Whatever came next, he was ready. The platform descended back into the heart of the chamber, its glow reflecting the charged atmosphere. Dane felt a shift in the air, a sense of purpose and power radiating from the structure itself. Xeryn stepped forward to the pedestal where the golden blade rested. Her hands hovered above it, her expression focused, almost reverent. "The blade," she said, her voice quiet yet commanding, "is more than a symbol or a weapon. It is a key, attuned to the lifeblood of the orai. With it, the cradle of our people awakens fully." As she spoke, the chamber around them began to hum, the runes on the walls glowing brighter. Energy coursed through the air, visible streams of light connecting the pedestal to the intricate designs etched across the chamber. The sword itself flared to life, its golden light expanding outward like a ripple across a still pond. Dane braced himself, his instincts screaming to prepare for the unknown. The ground beneath his feet vibrated, and a deep, resonant sound echoed through the chamber, a low, harmonious chime that seemed to resonate with his very bones. "What's happening?" he asked, his voice steady but edged with caution. "The cradle stirs," Xeryn replied. "It recognizes the blade's return and seeks to connect with those who carry the bloodline of the orai." As if in response, the chamber began to shift. The walls dissolved into glowing energy, revealing scenes of orai history in vivid, lifelike detail. Cities rose and fell in moments, starships soared through the void, and figures, some regal, some warrior-like, moved with purpose and grace. One scene captured Dane's attention. It showed a council chamber filled with orai leaders, their expressions tense. At the center of the room was Xeryn, younger but unmistakably herself, holding the golden sword aloft as if rallying her people. "This was the beginning of the end," Xeryn said, her gaze fixed on the image. "The war council where I made the fateful decision to trust our enemies. They came offering peace, a chance to share knowledge and unite against a greater threat. I believed them." The scene shifted abruptly, showing fleets of enemy ships descending on orai cities, unleashing devastating weapons that shattered entire worlds. Xeryn's expression darkened as she continued. "Their betrayal was swift and merciless. By the time we understood their true intentions, it was too late. The blade was taken, and with it, the heart of our resistance." Dane's jaw tightened as he watched the devastation unfold. He had seen the aftermath of such betrayals before, entire civilizations reduced to ash and memory by greed and ambition. "And now?" he asked. Do they still hunt you? Xeryn's gaze met his, her eyes blazing with resolve. They hunt the memory of us, the whisper of what we once were. But they will not succeed. With the blade returned, we are no longer whispers. We are the storm. Her words hung in the air, charged with determination. Dane felt a surge of respect for her strength and clarity of purpose. But he also knew the road ahead would be treacherous. He had faced enemies who stopped at nothing to maintain their hold on power. If the orai were to rise again, they would need more than just resolve. They would need allies, strategies, and the strength to face an enemy that had already proven its ruthlessness. "What's the next step?" he asked, stepping closer to her. Xeryn turned toward the pedestal, her expression thoughtful. "The cradle systems will reveal what remains of my people. There are those who fled the destruction, scattered across the stars. Some may still live in hiding, waiting for a sign that the orai endure. With the blade, we can call to them." A panel on the pedestal lit up, displaying a map of the galaxy. Points of light flickered across it, some brighter than others. Xeryn reached out, tracing a glowing line to one of the brighter points. "This is our first destination," she said. "A colony that survived the war but went silent decades ago. If there are orai still alive, they will be there." Dane studied the map, his tactical mind already assessing the challenges. "If this enemy of yours is still out there, they won't let you rebuild without a fight. We'll need to be ready." Xeryn nodded. "And we will be. But first, we must find our people." The chamber dimmed, the images fading as the map returned to the pedestal surface. Xeryn retrieved the golden sword, its light dimming to a soft glow as she held it. She turned to Dane, her expression firm. "You have given us hope, Dane. Now, we ask for your strength. Will you fight by our side, not as a savior but as an equal?" Dane considered her words. He had fought countless battles, many for causes that seemed noble at the time but had left him hollow. This, however, felt different. The orai struggle was not just a fight for survival, it was a fight for identity, for the right to exist. "I'm with you," he said, his voice steady. "Whatever comes, we'll face it together." Xeryn's lips curved into a faint smile, but there was a fire in her eyes, a determination that matched his own. "Then let us begin." The cradle's chamber began to hum once more, the runes flaring to life. A hidden passage opened before them, leading to what appeared to be a hangar. Within, a sleek starship rested, its design unmistakably orai. Its surface shimmered like liquid metal, and its engines pulsed faintly with dormant energy. "Our journey starts here," Xeryn said, striding toward the ship. "The galaxy may have forgotten us, but we will remind them who the orai are." Dane followed her, his heart pounding with anticipation. As they boarded the ship and the engines roared to life, he knew this was only the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with danger, discovery, and the promise of redemption. And somewhere in the vastness of space, their enemies waited, unaware that the storm was coming. The orai starship hummed as it lifted from the hangar floor, its engines glowing with renewed vigor. Dane stood near the viewport, watching the alien jungle recede beneath them. The ship's interior was sleek and organic, every surface flowing seamlessly into the next, as though it had been grown rather than constructed. A faint golden glow emanated from the walls, the same light that pulsed within the blade Queen Xeryn carried. Xeryn moved with purpose, her hand resting lightly on a console that appeared to respond to her touch as if attuned to her very essence. Symbols and diagrams flickered across the display, each indecipherable to Dane but clearly significant to her. As the ship breached the planet's atmosphere, she turned to him. "Our first destination lies in the Hylos Nebula," she said, her voice steady but tinged with anticipation. "A place of ancient significance to my people. The colony there was established as a sanctuary during the war. If they survived, they may hold the key to rebuilding." Dane nodded, his mind already calculating the risks. "What do we know about the current state of the nebula? Any reports of hostile activity?" Xeryn hesitated, her gaze flickering to the console. "Very little. The nebula distorts most sensors and communications, making it difficult to gather reliable information. But that same interference may have protected the colony from discovery. Or made it a perfect place for enemies to hide," Dane said, his tone practical. "We should assume the worst." Xeryn's lips quirked into a faint smile. "Your caution is well placed, warrior. The nebula holds many secrets, and not all of them are friendly. But we will face whatever comes." The ship's engines roared as it leaped into faster-than-light travel. The stars outside the viewport stretched into streaks of light, and Dane felt the familiar, fleeting sense of disorientation that came with such rapid travel. He turned his attention to Xeryn, who was studying the blade, her expression thoughtful. "It's more than a weapon to you," he said, breaking the silence. She glanced at him, her eyes reflecting the sword's golden glow. "It is," she admitted. "The blade is a link to my ancestors, to the strength and wisdom of those who came before me. When I hold it, I feel their presence, their guidance. It reminds me of who we are and what we fight for." Dane nodded, understanding more than he let on. He had seen countless warriors cling to symbols of home, family, or faith, small reminders of what they were fighting for in the chaos of war. "And you?" she asked, her voice softening. "What drives you, human? Why did you risk so much to bring the blade back?" Dane hesitated, his gaze shifting to the stars beyond the viewport. "I've seen too many people lose everything to greed, war, and betrayal. I couldn't stand by and let another legacy be erased. Maybe it's guilt. Maybe it's a need to make up for things I couldn't save in the past. But when I learned about your people and the blade, it felt right." Xeryn studied him for a moment, then nodded. "You carry a heavy burden, Dane. But I sense great strength in you as well." The orai could not ask for a better ally. Their conversation was interrupted by a series of chimes from the ship's console. Xeryn moved to the display, her expression sharpening. "We're approaching the Hylos Nebula," she said. "Prepare yourself. The interference will make navigation challenging." Dane moved to the weapons console, familiarizing himself with the ship's systems. The interface was unlike anything he had used before, but its intuitive design quickly became apparent. The ship shuddered slightly as it entered the nebula, the swirling clouds of gas and energy enveloping them in a kaleidoscope of colors. Lightning-like arcs of energy crackled through the nebula, illuminating the dense, shifting mists. Xeryn guided the ship with precision, her hands gliding over the controls. Dane monitored the sensors, his eyes scanning for any signs of activity. The interference was severe, the readings flickering and distorted, but one signal stood out, a faint, rhythmic pulse. "There," Dane said, pointing to the display. "A distress beacon, maybe. It's weak, but it's definitely not natural." Xeryn nodded, adjusting the ship's course. "It could be the colony's signal. If they're still alive, they'll need us." As they approached the source of the signal, the nebula began to clear, revealing a massive asteroid surrounded by debris. Structures were built into the rock, their design unmistakably orai. But the colony was in ruins, walls shattered, spires toppled, and scorch marks marring every surface. Dane's jaw tightened. "Looks like they didn't escape the war." "Perhaps," Xeryn said, her tone cautious. "But the signal persists. Someone may yet survive." The ship landed in a clearing amid the ruins, its engines powering down with a low hum. Dane and Xeryn disembarked, the air thick with the scent of burned metal and ozone. The ruins were eerily silent, the only sound the faint crackle of damaged systems struggling to function. They moved cautiously, weapons drawn. Dane's instincts screamed that danger was near, and he scanned every shadow, every broken structure for signs of movement. The signal led them to a central building. Its entrance partially collapsed. Xeryn raised her hand, and the golden blade flared to life, its light cutting through the darkness. Inside, the air was heavy with decay. The walls were lined with consoles, many of them dark, but a single screen flickered faintly. Xeryn approached it, her fingers brushing the controls. The screen flared to life, displaying an orai face, holographic, but lifelike. "Queen Xeryn," the figure said, its voice distorted but clear enough to understand. "If you are seeing this, then the colony has fallen. The enemy found us despite our precautions. We fought, but their numbers were too great." Xeryn's expression was grim as the message continued. "Some of us fled deeper into the nebula, to the ancient sanctuaries. If the blade has returned, it may guide you to us. We wait for the day our people can rise again." The message ended, the screen fading to black. Xeryn lowered her head, her grip tightening on the blade. Dane placed a hand on her shoulder. "They're still out there," he said. "And we'll find them." Xeryn looked at him, her eyes burning with resolve. "Then we must move quickly. The sanctuaries lie deeper within the nebula, but the path will be perilous. The enemy is likely searching for them as well." Dane nodded, his grip tightening on his weapon. "Let's not keep them waiting." As they left the ruins, the golden blade glowing brightly in Xeryn's hand, Dane couldn't shake the feeling that their journey had only just begun, and that the sanctuaries would hold not only allies but also secrets that could change the fate of the galaxy. The journey deeper into the Hylos Nebula was fraught with tension. The swirling mists grew denser, the bursts of energy more frequent. The Orai starship navigated the treacherous environment with grace, but each passing moment brought new challenges. Dane and Xeryn worked together seamlessly, their bond forged in purpose and survival. As they neared the coordinates hinted at in the message, the nebula began to thin, revealing a sight that took their breath away. Suspended in the heart of the nebula was an ancient sanctuary, its massive structure glowing faintly with the same golden energy as the blade. The design was unmistakably Orai, but its size and grandeur far surpassed the ruins they had seen before. Spires spiraled into the void, and energy conduits coursed like veins through the structure, pulsating with life. "This is it," Xeryn whispered, awe in her voice. "The Sanctum Prime." The ship descended, landing smoothly on a platform that extended from the sanctuary. As they disembarked, Dane's hand hovered near his weapon, his instincts on high alert. The air was silent save for the hum of energy, but the weight of history was palpable. The entrance to the sanctuary opened as they approached, a massive door splitting down the center with a low, resonant groan. Inside, the architecture was breathtaking. Columns of light stretched to the high ceilings, and the walls shimmered with glyphs that shifted and flowed like water. The sanctuary felt alive, as if it were watching them. "Do you feel that?" Dane asked, his voice low. Xeryn nodded. "The blade resonates here. It knows its purpose." The golden sword flared to life in her hand, its glow illuminating the path ahead. As they moved deeper into the sanctum, they came to a central chamber. It was vast and circular, with a pedestal at its center surrounded by concentric rings of glowing runes. Figures began to emerge from the shadows, Orai survivors, their silvery skin reflecting the blade's light. They looked weary but resolute, their eyes fixed on Xeryn. One of them stepped forward, an elder with a presence that radiated wisdom. "Queen Xeryn," he said, his voice steady despite its age. "You have returned, and with you, the blade of Xeryn." "I have," Xeryn replied, holding the blade aloft. "The time has come to unite our people and reclaim what was taken." The elder nodded, his gaze shifting to Dane. "And this one?" "A human stands with you." Dane stepped forward, his posture firm. "I'm here because I believe in what she's fighting for. Your struggle isn't just about the Orai, it's about everyone who's been crushed under the weight of greed and oppression. If I can help, I will." The elder studied him for a moment, then inclined his head. "You speak with conviction, human. Your presence here is no accident." Xeryn approached the pedestal, placing the blade in its center. The runes on the floor began to glow, spreading outward in intricate patterns. The chamber trembled, and a beam of light shot upward, illuminating a holographic map of the galaxy. Points of light flickered across the map, hidden Orai sanctuaries, scattered survivors, and the unmistakable presence of the enemy's forces. "This is the network of our people," the elder explained. "The sanctuaries have remained hidden, but they are vulnerable. With the blade, we can activate the Sanctum's defenses and call our people home. But it will draw attention." "It already has," Dane said, pointing to a cluster of red lights on the map. "The enemy's forces are moving. They'll be here soon." Xeryn turned to the gathered Orai, her voice steady and commanding. "Then we will face them. We will show them that the Orai are not relics of the past. We are the architects of the future." The survivors cheered, their voices echoing through the chamber. Dane felt a surge of determination as he prepared for the inevitable confrontation. The sanctuary came alive around them, its systems activating in response to the blade. Defensive turrets emerged from hidden compartments, and shields flickered into place, protecting the structure. When the enemy fleet arrived, it was vast, hundreds of ships descending upon the sanctuary like a swarm of locusts. Dane and Xeryn led the defense, coordinating with the orai survivors to repel the assault. The sanctuary's weapons blazed, and the orai starships darted through the enemy ranks with precision and fury. The battle was fierce and chaotic. Dane found himself on the ground, leading a team of orai warriors to defend a critical energy conduit. The enemy's foot soldiers were relentless, but the orai fought with a ferocity born of desperation and hope. Xeryn moved like a force of nature, the golden blade cutting through the enemy with radiant precision. As the battle raged, the sanctuary systems began to reach their full power. Energy surged through the structure, and the blade's light grew blinding. The holographic map transformed, projecting an image of the orai's homeworld, a planet long thought lost. Xeryn stood at the center of the chamber, her voice rising above the chaos. "This is our destiny. The blade has shown us the way. We will reclaim our home." With one final surge, the sanctuary unleashed a wave of energy that rippled through the battlefield. The enemy ships faltered, their systems disrupted, and the remaining forces retreated in disarray. Cheers erupted from the orai, their voices a chorus of triumph and relief. When the dust settled, Dane stood beside Xeryn on the sanctuary's balcony, gazing at the nebula. The survivors gathered below, their expressions filled with hope. "You did it," Dane said, his voice quiet but filled with admiration. "We did it," Xeryn replied, her eyes meeting his. "This victory is only the beginning. The path ahead will be long, but together we will rebuild." Dane nodded, a sense of peace settling over him. For the first time in years, he felt like he was part of something greater, something worth fighting for. As the sanctuary prepared to guide the orai to their homeworld, Xeryn placed a hand on Dane's shoulder. "You are one of us now, Dane. Wherever this journey takes us, you will always have a place among the orai." He smiled, the weight of his past lifting. "I wouldn't have it any other way." And as the sanctuary's light filled the nebula, the orai's resurgence began, a beacon of hope shining in the vastness of space.